are you drawn to him because I mean the story and the film I think intends for the viewer to still be drawn to him despite the obvious horrible things that he's done.
Mm-hmm.
Clarice is drawn to him as well because he is interesting, he is intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like a, you know, if a puzzle was a person, getting to know
Yes.
him. They do such a great job of taking someone who, yeah, I mean, if you met him on the street, and you were like, oh my god, it's Hannibal, you'd run the other way. But
Uh-huh.
in this movie, it's very much you're getting like getting sucked in just the way Jodie is getting sucked in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is true. And I think that I am a little bit fascinated by Hannibal Lecter, and I'm fascinated by him because I, in general, am fascinated by like bad characters, like characters who are bad people, like the villains. And that's because villains are so complex. Hannibal Lecter in the movie is kind of like almost a legend as a person, where we know that he's a bad person. Like his name is Cannibal, and we understand that he's done bad things. Like he's in a glass prison, so to speak. Like his everyone else has bars in the prison cell. He has like a little glass wall with like little holes for air. Like that's how bad this guy is. Like he can't even reach his hand through the bars. Like they're just like absolutely no way. You got to stay in your box, my guy. Like we can't give you any kind of leverage whatsoever. And that's how bad he is. But when it comes to the complexity of villains, I think they're so interesting because, of course, his acts are terrible and abominable and absolutely like reprehensible in a way. But it's just like the portrayal of the character, especially through the actor, because like Anthony Hopkins is amazing and I love Anthony Hopkins. And then I can't help but draw comparisons to him and Mads Mikkelsen in Hannibal the show that was on NBC because I did like that show. And Hannibal on the show in the show is different from the movie because the movie he is so poised and so restrained and yet captivating. And in the show, you could tell why he's captivating because he has like the fashion and you kind of see what he does because as the audience we're kind of let into his crimes, but we still see him as other people perceive him. So we're kind of drawn into the complexities of the character and the aesthetic and the narrative features that bring to that character, but we still see him as the person that he like outwardly appears to be, in the show. And I think in the movie, it's a lot more interesting to see him in Silence of the Lambs because he's barely in the movie. That's the thing. He's not in the movie that much, and he still got the Oscar. But his performance
For
in the
actor.
movie for great best actor, and his performance stands out so much so because everyone is just like drawn to him, and not really drawn, but like because of who he is and how terrible he is. But of course, what he knows and the knowledge that he holds is what makes him such an interesting character. Because we want to know, like, how do you know who this person is? How do you know Buffalo Bill? How do you understand these things? Like, how do you like see what we don't see? And it's just because he sees what Buffalo Bill sees because he's like him in like in almost every sense. So I think that's why I'm kind of drawn to that character. That's why I like this movie so much. Yeah, good question. That way.
I don't. There's not much about this movie I don't like. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Howard Shore's score is
Oh yeah.
wonderful and haunting. I like the backstory of Clarice.
Mm-hmm.
I like her back and forth with Scott Glenn, who plays Crawford.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Ted Levine as Buffalo Bill is. Uh, I mean, could have and maybe even should have been nominated for Best Supporting Actor,
Mm-hmm.
even though, like you pointed out, I think he's in the movie more than Anthony Hopkins is. Um,
Yes.
it is my only the only thing I don't like about this movie, and it's just my own personal preference. I don't like the girl who plays Catherine,
Okay.
the senator's daughter.
Uh huh.
I mean, she's not terrible, but I think she's probably the weakest link. Every
Mm-hmm.
time she's on screen, I'm kind of like, nah.
Well, she is supposed
Go
to be.
back to everything.
She's supposed to be playing like a captured victim. Like
Yeah, and she's a kid, and she's a kid too. She's
yeah.
probably like 23 years old. So, but yeah, I mean, I think it's about as close to perfect as you can get. And we're again off mic. I mentioned this is one of three movies to ever win the top five prizes: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, and
Mm-hmm.
the writing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's up there with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and It Happened One Night. And I would say, I love Cuckoo's Nest, but I think Silence of the Lambs, despite its like really gory and dark content,
Mm-hmm.
it's it's so rewatchable. Like I love rewatching movies, as I said. And this one I watch at least once a year. This one is up there with Jaws
Mm-hmm.
and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade and, Blade Runner, a handful of others that
Mm-hmm.
I
If you enjoy watching these highlights, subscribe to the channel and turn on post notifications so you know when a new video is uploaded.
that I make time to rewatch every single year. Kind of like the way some people reread books every year.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. And I would say for someone who is like a fan of horror movies, it's not as gory as I first anticipated it to be. Of course, the scene where Hannibal escapes and then that one cop is like strung up by the American flag. That's definitely something that I haven't seen in a movie before, and that is definitely like horrifying. And I feel like that is such an interesting. It was such an interesting scene because it comes in the third act of the film, and for someone who watches a lot of horror movies, usually with the killers and like them being killers, when they do start doing that, it happens a little sooner. It happens a little earlier in the movie. We don't really wait that long. There isn't that much of a preamble to see like why are we scared of this guy? Like why am I worried about this guy? Why are you so frightened by this guy? Like what makes him so dangerous? And the movie really does gonna do a good job of like drawing us into this character and also kind of disarming us in a way where it's like, yeah, he's got the pen, but like, is he gonna do anything about it? Like, he's being kind of gross towards the senator, but like, is that really any different from like how all these other men are treating Jodie's character, like Clarice? Like, he seems to, even though like he's strapped up and he has a mask and everything, and like he's dangerous, is there that much a difference between him and everyone else that I've seen in this movie? And then in that scene, when you're watching him like take down the two guards, and he's being like so careful and calculated, and me, I'm watching it, I'm like, can you get the fuck? Can you go? Like you're supposed to be police officers. Like I don't expect you to be like ninjas, but like this is one man. Are we really gonna let one man take us down? And yeah,
A little
they
man, yeah.
not
A
even
little dude.
like probably not even 5'6" at that. Come on, like let's be real. And I do appreciate that part of the movie because it does show us like how dangerous he is. And I didn't even realize this until the first rewatch, the first time I watched the movie. But Hannibal doesn't even get caught. Like we're focusing so much on Hannibal and learning about this guy, and then he escapes, and it's like, okay, well he's gone now. It's like, hello, what even happened? We let the main guy get away. We had to get the other guy now. It's definitely different from other movies that I've seen, but I do like that because, of course, it leaves it open for a sequel, which I haven't watched because Jodie Foster didn't come for the sequel, so I was just like, well, I'm not gonna watch it then because like that's not
No,
Clarice.
she was very upset by the level of violence. And it's, I didn't read any of the books, but it's based on Thomas Harris's book Hannibal, which was the
Hmm.
sequel to Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
And, there's there's more violence. Like Clarice is more of a detective
Hmm.
in Silence of the Lambs, but she's kind of a little bit more of an action hero in Hannibal, you could argue.
Mm.
Um, but if you think the ripped open torso of the cop hanging like a bat or something
Yeah.
was gory, there's one part in Hannibal that will definitely shock you.
Good thing I'm not gonna see it because you can't make me watch that movie. Trust me. And
And there was Manhunter. Did you ever see Manhunter?
Manhunter.
So
What's
Tom Yeah, so Thomas Harris wrote a book called Red Dragon, is about the
Ah.
cop, which is about the cop that catches Hannibal Lecter, and that
Mm.
was made. The guy that does the McDonald's commercials now, Brian Cox, ba-da-ba-ba-ba, from Succession.
What?
Brian Cox played Hannibal Lecter in Michael Mann's Manhunter, which I think came out in 1981, and that's the prequel to Silence of the Lambs. Then he wrote Silence of the Lambs, then that came out, and then they did Hannibal after he wrote that, and then they remade Manhunter under the original title Red Dragon, with Ed Norton and Ray Fiennes, and then once again Anthony Hopkins and Emily
What?
Watson. That's Red Dragon's. Red Dragon's worth watching. If I was going to tell you between Hannibal and Red Dragon, I would watch Red Dragon.
Wow. Well, the only thing I really know
Plus, it's
of,
more Anthony Hopkins as Lecter.
yes,
So
yes. Damn, Ray Fiennes? Really?
yes, oh yes, and he is. So he's essentially the equivalent of Buffalo Bill.
Mm.
He's the killer that they're trying to get Lecter to help him find.
Mm. Got it. Okay. I mean, from what I know about Red Dragon, I only know as much as the show is, because the show's based off of Red Dragon, and it's based.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's based off of Will Graham's relationship with Hannibal, but I think I will want to watch the film because the TV show does take a different perspective on Hannibal than what is obviously in Silence of the Lambs. And I think what's in the book from the video essays that I've seen about it, and Will Graham and Hannibal's relationship are as more like, as people know, queer coded. So maybe there's something else to be learned from it. Since you're at the end of the video, don't forget to like the video and leave a comment down below. If you want early access to these highlights, join our Patreon. Patrons have access to our entire archive, including full-length videos. Patrons also have the opportunity to choose a topic for our podcast, and they get the opportunity to be a guest. Join now.